My answer for number one is this statement presents a complex ethical dilemma. While it's generally considered virtuous to be kind, the assertion that showing kindness only to one person constitutes a sin implies a broader moral obligation to extend compassion equally. This principle is rooted in concepts of impartiality and fairness. It's important to acknowledge that circumstances often necessitate prioritizing certain individuals, such as family members or those in immediate need. Therefore, whether selective kindness is truly sinful depends on individual interpretation of moral obligation and the specific context in which the kindness is shown. A truly convincing argument would need to define the boundaries of this sin and consider the potential justification for prioritizing one person's needs over others. For number two, the Reverend Master's actions raise a classic utilitarian versus deontological ethical debate. Utilitarianism prioritizes the greatest good for the greatest number, suggesting that sacrificing one life to save many is morally justifiable. Deontology, on the other hand, emphasizes moral duties and rules, regardless of consequences. From a deontological perspective, the act of sacrificing one person, even for the greater good, is inherently wrong. Therefore, whether the Reverend Master deserves punishment hinges on which ethical framework one adopts. A balanced response would acknowledge both perspectives and the complexities of judging such an actions. From a deontological perspective, the act of sacrificing one person, even for the greater good, is inherently wrong. Therefore, whether the Reverend Master deserves punishment hinges on which ethical framework one adopts. A balanced response would acknowledge both perspectives and the complexities of judging such an action. 3. The question of forgiving the nine-tailed fox depends on the balance between justice and mercy. Her actions, driven by revenge for her fallen brethren, are understandable from an empathetic perspective. However, the severity and nature of her actions must also be considered. Forgiveness doesn't necessarily equate to condoning her actions. It's a complex process that involves acknowledging the harm caused, understanding the motivations, and ultimately choosing to move beyond retribution. For number four, Shin's decision presents a conflict between loyalty and conviction. Staying loyal to the established order, represented by staying in the Jingsu Hall, implies upholding tradition and authority. Following Jiang, however, suggests a belief in a different path, potentially one involving rebellion against this existing power structure. The right choice depends on Shin's personal values and assessment of the potential consequences of each action. A comprehensive answer would explore the potential outcomes of each decision and the ethical consideration involved in choosing between loyalty and conviction. For number five, whether Jiang deserves godhood depends on the definition of God and the criteria for such a position. If godhood implies moral perfection, then Jiang's defiance might disqualify him. However, if godhood implies leadership, courage, and a commitment to a greater good, then Jiang's action could be seen as heroic and worthy of such a title. The answer hinges on the specific values and characteristics associated with the concept of God within the given narrative. For number six, the decision to sever the connection between realms present a strategic dilemma with potential long term consequences. While it might bring short term peace and stability, it could also isolate the human realm, preventing potential benefits from interaction with other realms or hindering access to knowledge and resources. A thorough answer would weigh the short term advantages against the potential long term disadvantages. For number seven, the question of concealing truths for the sake of peace raises a fundamental conflict between transparency and social stability. While honesty is often valued, some argue that certain truths can be harmful or destabilizing, justifying their concealment to maintain peace and order. However, this approach raises concerns about manipulation and the potential for long term negative consequences resulting from suppressed information. Uh, a complete answer would explore the ethical implications of both transparency and deception and the potential trade offs involved.